I'm gonna keep waiting.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture, where I have with me professional wrestler and self-described wrestler as the drag queen Cactus Jack, Corinne Mink. And I think I said the name right.
Yes,
Because
yes,
before we
yes.
started, she said that if I said it wrong, she would kill me. So I'm not dead yet, everybody. So clearly. So welcome to the show. That's where we're going to start right there.
Beautiful, beautiful. Great start. Great start. Hello, everyone. Those of you who don't know me, hi, I'm Corinne Mink at CORINNE_MINK. Do I even have an underscore? I don't even know.
I think you have an underscore. I think you have an
Do
underscore on
I?
Twitter. I think you do.
I'm such garbage at Twitter. It's not even funny. It's like
Yeah.
3,000 years old. Yeah, I do have an underscore on Twitter. Great. I mean, I do all my likings on Instagram just because, like, I don't want to read. I just want to look at pictures. So that's just why I
Well,
got my Instagram going.
it's
I do
okay.
have an underscore on Instagram. Whoa! Damn. I should work on my branding, but it's still one R and two N's, no matter what I say.
So, you got a lot going on right now in your life. And one of the things that I want to talk about is you were on the first episode of Nificent, which is a fascinating show. And if anybody knows anything about that show, some people do, some people don't. I believe it's for RuPaul alumni, and they basically help women who are about to be engaged or about to be proposed to plan their wedding. And so a lot was going on with you throughout that entire episode, and it's very much like a roller coaster. But I think it does speak to who you are beyond the ring, as well as it goes back into the ring in many ways. And so, how did this all come about before we start diving into it?
So, for those of you who don't know, I got into wrestling because it was the closest I was going to get to being a drag queen as a biological woman. It really was. I fell in love with drag back in 2008 when I saw drag queens on Project Runway for the very first time. That's another story. So I've always loved drag queens, like very fiercely. So, my husband and I got engaged July 4th, 2018. And we really weren't doing much to like plan the wedding because we already lived together, right? And we're wrestling, like we're busy, man. Full-time jobs, wrestling, like it's just crazy. So we were doing that. We were just putting it off. And then one day I got home from a show, like late at night, obviously, and I was just like decompressing on my couch. My husband was asleep, and I saw a casting call on Facebook for women who are getting married in the NYC area who want 4 drag queens to plan their wedding. I was like, wow, I'm an engaged woman in the NYC area. I love drag queens. Let's go. So, um, I send my stuff in. I don't tell my husband, fiance at the time. I don't tell him because I was like, he's asleep. Why wake him up? And I can't remember like how he found out. Like if I told him. No, I think they emailed me back, and I was like, Javi, I may or may not have sent in our story to a TLC show. He was so mad. So mad. He wasn't mad at the show. He was just mad that I didn't tell him about it until like we were getting the second and third calls. And he didn't want to do it because he didn't want to like publicize like our life like that. And it was actually the director was talking to him on the phone and convinced him to go along with it. I don't think he regrets it as I look over at him. His face doesn't have any regret on it, so here I am.
And so now this show's going forward, and you're training in the ring. These 4 drag queens come in, and pretty much things start spiraling from there. a little bit out of control, but still in bounds to some degree.
Oh,
And
they
we
spiraled.
start dealing with some serious issues where you definitely have a masculine element to you as a person and as a wrestler, and you also have a feminine component to you. And this was kind of playing out throughout the entire show. And so, what was that like, really having that conversation publicly? Because we don't see that in wrestling, we don't see that in the ring in many ways. And I think that to some degree we forget that wrestlers are human and that they're not wrestlers all the time and that they are people like us as fans. So, what was that like, and really having sort of these drag queens kind of give you insight and confirmation? Because that kind of happened throughout the entire show.
Confirmation, I think, is the best word you use there because I'm very aware of my masculine traits. I'm very aware of my feminine traits. And I really was having a hard time packaging it in a bridal sense. Um, I like I said, I've always been aware of it, and I'm really glad that people acknowledge it and embrace it because it wasn't always that way. I didn't always embrace, my masculine, um, I guess traits is the best word. Um, so yeah, it was like, and to have the queens like tell me like there was a bunch of footage that they didn't use or like a lot of off camera stuff. Like BB Sahara said to me, you know if those are the qualities that make you masculine, then my mother is the manliest person on earth because my mom is strong. My mom is fierce. She has a loud voice. She is strong. And I love my mother to death. And I was crying. Oh my God. Like, and this was in the car. Like, sucks the camera didn't catch it. Would have been great television. Um, and I think the Queens picked that up more than what was shown on TV because it was I have 28 years experience of this weird gender expression that I do that in my head is totally normal. And to fit it in 40 minutes of programming for, just the average Joe of America is hard. I was turned on to how aware I am of my gender in college when I wound up accidentally majoring in women's studies in as well as psychology. Like I just took enough classes to accidentally double major, and it was because that was the stuff that fascinated me and drove me. And like I said, if it wasn't for drag queens, if it wasn't for this crazy, way of thinking about gender, hi Javi, uh, then I wouldn't be wrestling and I would not meet my husband. So like it's crazy. The stuff that I thought was gonna hold me back in life really propelled me to the best opportunities and experiences I've ever lived.
And to dive even further, because you mentioned the bridal package, there's a great clip out there of you sitting on the ring and describing it, and it's amazing. And I think you brought up a really good point, and I forgot who said it, which queen said it, but there are many different brides that come in a variety of forms. And they said, do you want to wear a wedding dress? And what was that like? Because that seemed very charged, and we saw a few scenes, and you made one of them run in heels, which was the funniest thing. Behind the scenes, too, when they were describing it, it was one of the funniest scenes I've ever seen on TV.
Jujubee's full of shit, man. She didn't run that far.
So,
my dressing room in that closet that I wasn't allowed to be in, maybe 20 feet away. So she's complaining, but that's okay. No, I always wanted to wear a dress. Always, always, always. And when I said I don't think there's a garment on this planet that embodies who I am, I was low key politicking to see if I can get them to make me a convertible dress, but they just didn't have time. Like the timeline, like I don't think people realize like just how crunched the timeline was for all of this. I found out I was gonna be on the show October 23rd. That's my birthday. I found out I was gonna be on the show October 23rd. I got married February 8th. They wanted me they wanted me to be married in December. Like, I was like, guys, like, I have nothing planned. Like, what do you mean get married in December? But so we had to go back and forth a million times. Yeah, they changed everything, man. Like, I was getting married in October of this year, and I'm thankful that all of that happened, because with the weird, crazy coronavirus situation that we live in right now, I don't know if my wedding would have happened. So I got it in at the very last second, because like less than a month later, that's when stuff started shutting down. So, I like all of this is somehow cosmically like strung together and just is not a coincidence and all meant to be.
Yeah, and obviously this entire episode is dealing with a lot of stuff, and I think that it's really an awareness point. And the episode came out in April, I think, or May. I forget
April.
which.
It was April, yeah.
So, and it was the first episode, and in many ways, and I think more so than the other episodes, and I'm only seeing glimpses from the other episodes, this seems to be more of an awareness point and almost makes you a role model to some degree to say this doesn't have to be traditional. And you don't have to just be this feminine princess, for lack of a word. And I know that I can get hit for that, saying it, but I think it exaggerates the point that it's okay to wear a pantsuit to be a wedding, which was mentioned, and then some other stuff as well. So what is that like for you? Because we don't see that all that frequently from wrestlers. We have total divas and total bellas, but this seemed less artificial, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I think in wrestling you see it more on the male embodying feminine qualities. You have incredible talents like Sonny Kiss, Jamie Senegal, and Eddie McQueen
Paradise
embracing
also
their feminine qualities, right? But I don't think there are a lot of like cisgender women out there who fully embrace, things that make them masculine, because maybe some of them don't have that ability, like have that about them. Like, yeah, there are girls who like lift and like are incredible shaped and jacked, so to speak. But like if I stretch my neck a certain way, like I have an Adam's apple. Like, actually, the funniest thing in the world the other day, someone like tweeted, giving Nyla Rose, and Miss Candy Lee, yes, Candy Lee, and I forgot the other one, but they were trans women wrestlers, and they included me on the list, like thinking that I was a transgender woman. I was like, listen, yo, like, I'm with you here. Like, you're totally right. Like, trans rights all day, but I don't deserve to be on that platform with pioneers such as Candy Lee and Nyla Rose, because I was born this way. Like, so, and it's just something that has been my reality for 28 years, like, so I don't think anything of it. So when people are like, oh yeah, like, what you're doing is so cool, and I'm like, doing what? Like, I'm eating cereal like everyone else, what am I doing? But yeah, I do think, I think there are a lot of men who embrace their feminine qualities, but we need some butch queens out on the scene, like, ever since, what's her name, Mickey Knuckles died, man. Well, she didn't die. Sorry, she's not dead. But ever since Mickey Knuckles retired, where have the butch queens gone?
I agree. There's far and few in between, in which that I can't think of another wrestler who is in your category, for lack of a better word. I really can't off the top of my head. And even going further, I mean, I think that primetime wrestling to some degree has also put you on the map, where you've been wrestling for a while before that, but before then I didn't know who you were, before Butch vs. Gore. And I'm the first person to admit it. Billy was on my other podcast, and Billy put it a really good way, and he said, you're going to have 20 to 30 new favorite wrestlers after Butch vs. Gore. Now, Billy was wrong. I only have 15, but that's okay. I really can only count to 14. He's really pushing it for me. But what was that like, being that I think you're cis and you're married and you're kind of not in that LGBTQ category, but you're an ally?
Hmm.
So what was that like being part of that? Because that was a really interesting show.
Oh, I love that show. That was like the most fun I had in wrestling in a long, long time. I drove down. He wasn't on the show, but I drove down with Miss Eddie McQueen, my best Judy. So we had a nice car ride, eating fried chicken in a parking lot, having a good time. And then, came the show. One of the bridesmaids from my wedding lives in D.C. The one who actually has this exact bandana, and she was at the dress shopping with me, and I thought she stole my bandana, but she didn't. We just had the same one. I thought that was so crazy. But her name was Allie, and Allie was in the crowd, and she didn't tell me she was going to be there. So I'm in the ring, and I'm looking around, and I see Allie's girlfriend, who's like 6 feet tall and the most beautiful strawberry blonde hair. And so I see Julia, and I'm like, and I look down, and there's Allie, and I can start like almost crying. So here I am, like looking badass, man, my ass kicking boots, like spilling beer on my face, and I see Allie and Julia, and I'm like, they're my best friends. um, but in terms of the whole LGTBQIA scene, I will vehemently defend them until the day I die, just because this really all happened in college where I started meeting people of different categories of that umbrella term
Orientations.
and a lot of, yeah, gender specific minorities and all of that. And they accepted me like for who I was. And it's just beautiful to see the most marginalized group of people I could think of embracing me, no questions asked, and to this day are my best friends. And so if anybody messes with any of the gays, as I lovingly call them, I feel like I've earned the right, so to speak, to say the gays. Like, is that a thing? If anybody messes with the gays, you got one tough broad coming after you, baby, because homegirl does not play that. Mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. And now that we are in Pride Month, actually, I've been like featured, so to speak, on like, here's a gay wrestler of the day, here's Corinne Mink, and I'm flattered, I really
It
am,
must be
but
weird though, right?
I'm flattered, but I don't deserve that spotlight because the other 11 months are for, like, they're not for straight people, but like, this is the time that we give our not straight friends the spotlight. So when I'm put on that platform, I feel like I don't deserve to be there because I'm not,
It's
I
just
don't
not your
go through the same
opportunity to
struggles that they
shine.
do.
It's not your opportunity to shine that month
Yeah,
or
it's
this
not.
month.
I mean, I have 11 other months out of the year, you know? So I appreciate it. I'm flattered, but like, guys, like, let's not forget the true heroes of the situation. And that's your Billy Dixons, that's your Nyla Roses, your Big Swoles and your Diamantes. Like, they're the heroes we should be talking about right now during this month. We'll talk about One Tough Broad in July, baby. Like, I can wait. It's okay.
So to even talk further about that, because I think you and O'Shea were sort of not in that LBGTQ, and maybe there was one or two more people who maybe Eel O'Neill. I don't know. I don't want to put words in Eel O'Neill's mouth, but you know, a lot of people on that show were not necessarily, they're in that group, and also a lot of them have been underrepresented and haven't gotten attention. And I don't mean to put you a little bit on a pedestal, but you've been all over and you've gotten attention all over the place more than a lot of those people. So what was that like? Even having the honor and getting that call and being booked and being sought after, because this wasn't the traditional prime time, you're on our main roster, given, of course, you're going to have a match. Everybody was sort of selected to be
Hmm.
at that show. Maybe O'Shea wasn't, but he's the champ, so he's automatically in. I love O'Shea. This is why I can make fun of him. He's a Facebook friend, so I can take a shot at him, and he knows I'm joking. But anyhow, getting back to the question, what was that like? Because it's a real honor to some degree.
And I didn't realize how lovely that honor was until I got home. Or until I saw the crowd. I mean, I just, you know, Butch versus Gore. This is a great show run by Billy. I love Billy. I love Billy to death. You don't understand how much I love Billy Dixon. Actually, I believe this was the show that Billy and I were supposed to actually work with each other. And Billy and I have never had a match yet, but like, someone needs to make it happen. It was supposed to happen at Paris is Bumpin'. R.I.P. Paris is Bumping. Oh my god. But anyway, neither here nor there. I didn't realize just how significant the show was until I saw the crowd and that it was like sold out, people are sneaking in type of deal. And it was like, I didn't feel like I was taking up someone's spot, so to speak. I felt very like I belonged there. And I feel like everybody, every wrestler, every ref, every person, the sound guys, every person in the crowd felt like they belonged there. And it's because they did. We deserved that moment of just beautiful solidarity across the locker room, the crowd, the guy giving beers out. Like, it was absolutely an incredible experience. And I'm glad that was one of the last experiences I had before this pandemic hit. And I will gladly do it again in a heartbeat. And I don't know. I want to move to DC to just wrestle for primetime all the time.
And that's one of the things about that show that was very interesting. And I'm a straight guy, and I'm the first person to say, hey, I like LGBTQ, I support people, but I was a little skeptical going into it. And I found it to be very inclusive and very welcoming to everybody across the board. And I think Primetime did a really good job because there have been places that have not done that well.
I don't want to give her clout, but
anybody who knows anybody.
And the shows that Miss Kick Rotaldo put together was one type of LGTBQ member, plus man candy, plus he literally called me the F-word hag of the whole show. So, and the shows a lot of times were really like almost carny in a way. Like, they weren't wrestling shows. They were shows that had gay wrestlers and a lot of storyline to put over the person who put it together. So to see LGBTQIA talent from all walks, from all types of expressions of it at primetime, it really was. Do you watch Pose?
I actually don't.
Okay, so in Pose, right, the main character breaks away from her original house, start a new house. Billy is the Blanca. Billy escaped the house of A-Mob and started her own house. And when, like, Billy, Mother of the Year award, man, legendary mother. Like, the fact that he put that together is beautiful. It really was. And that's what I think people should think of when they hear gay wrestling. They shouldn't think of just feminine men, doing divas spots. They should think of real athletes who express their identity in every sense of the word, from every side of the spectrum, and are credible athletes who are there to also entertain. Not just entertain, but to be athletic and entertain in their own way. So
the way I describe Primetime, and I might get flack for it, is I describe Primetime and Butch vs. Gore in particular as a wrestling show that had a lot of gay talent on it, not a gay wrestling show. And the reason why I describe it that way, and it sounds like semantics, it's not because everybody in that ring was a wrestler, except Lola, who was bringing out.
Lola!
Except Lola!
Baby. I'm sure if I took Lola off the top rope in some type of superplex, they would land just fine and sell it just fine, baby. Lola, you're one of the boys, baby. You are one of the boys. I don't care what anyone says. Lolo's bump card exists.
I'm sure it does, and we all want to see Lola Russell. Some point, at some point. But getting back to you, because this is about you and not Lolo. So to talk about your match at primetime, because I thought your match was interesting. It was a 7-way scramble. My boy won that match, AC Mack. I love AC Mack. I'm an AC Mack diehard fan, from the swamps of Georgia. And a bunch of people were in that match. Russell Rogue was in that match. MV Young was in that match. Eric LA was in that match. Jared Evans was in that match. Who else was in that match? I'm missing one.
Miss Devin Monroe.
Devin Monroe. That's who I'm missing. Was also in that match. And I don't think I'm missing anybody else, right?
No. You good. Yeah, you good.
So that was a very interesting match because there was a lot on the line. There was a future championship opportunity. There was 7 of you in there. There was some Brittany action going on.
Not enough Brittany action, if you ask me, but...
Well, that's Russell Rogue's fault. Clearly. He was on this show, too, a few weeks ago. We had like 20 minutes about Brittany, but that's a different discussion for those who are watching.
You had 20 minutes on Brittany with Russell? That's it? Like, that's a record. That's the straightest thing he's ever done. Only ramble about Brittany for 20 minutes. Shit.
So what was that match like? Because the way I felt about that match was that I felt everybody in that match got an opportunity to shine. And I felt like nobody was buried in a match that really should have and could have lended itself to that.
I loved that match. I really did. People, they get all boo-boo face when they're in a multi-man match like that because they think it's so hard. No, there's so many more things that could set your match apart from the other matches on the card because they don't have the opportunity to have 6 other people in the ring. When you're a singles wrestler, you only have you, your opponent, and the ref, maybe a manager if you're lucky. So when you're in a scramble match like that, there's so many other things that you can do, like, double team moves or, just very creative offense that you can't do in a singles match. And so I think we all had that attitude going into it that, like, hey, like, there's stuff that we can do. And, there's creative things that we can do here. And I, like I said, I loved every minute of it. Like, after that, that was actually my first time wrestling literally every single person in that ring. I've met MV, I've met Erica, I've met Jared. Oh, Jared, I love that little bitch. I've met them, but I've never wrestled any of them. And that was my first time working seriously every person in that ring. So after that, I want a singles match with all of them because they're all lovely people. And I want to beat the ever-living shit out of Envy, and I want Envy to beat the ever-living shit out of me, because that's money, baby. That's moolah. People want to see me punching Envy in the face, and people want to see Envy punching me in the face. Let's be real.
And what was great about this match and the entire Butch vs. Gore is that it was on IWTV, and I don't know if you know this, but Gator actually fought for that. And there was Gator actually fought really hard for that and made that happen in many ways. And I don't think people realize that.
I had no idea.
While Gator wasn't running the booking element of it, and it was Billy and Lolo's baby, for lack of a better word here, and I'm sure other people can find a better project can be put in there as well, or card, or whatever you want to call it. It's not important.
Baby's the best word.
But Gator was running a lot of stuff behind the scenes. And one of the things is that he really pushed and fought for that IWTV deal because Primetime is on IWTV after. It was never live. And it was actually trending on Twitter during the show and a little bit after. And so what was that like, knowing all this now and being part of it and knowing that it's live, and a lot more than I think 500 or 600 people were sitting in the arena.
Oh, that was packed, bro. Packed arena. I had no idea that Gator had to fight for that, but I'm also not surprised because Gator is someone who is so professional, and he's like, as a female wrestler, you're bound to get like weirdly hit on by some creepy dudes out there. But Gator, no, man, Gator strictly professional, but also really approachable. So he's not like some carny freak, you know? So and the fact that like none of us, I mean, I didn't have any idea that he had to fight to get it on IWTV like
Maybe
that. Like
not
it tells
fight.
me
It's strongly
what?
encouraged. Maybe not fight, but and I don't mean like fighting and
Yeah,
like tooth and
but
nail
he didn't
going.
dangle it over our heads like, "Oh, I did this and this to get you this." Like there was no like quid pro quo transactional feeling there. Um, and I just Gator was a pleasure to work with. That was my first time working with him and meeting him. So, I mean, and the hoops I had to jump through to get that DC license, I wouldn't do that just for anybody, baby. But Gator is someone worth dealing with the DC commission for. Um, that's beautiful. Like I'm gonna write him a little thank you letter because I didn't know that. And yeah, Gator's the realest. We should have a Gator holiday. Cheers, Gator. He
And
also paid me $5 extra. Hey, he didn't mean to, but he did. Hey. And then I messaged him because I'm an honest person. I was like, I think you accidentally paid me $5 more. And he goes, just keep it. Because I thought it was one of those tests. Like, oh, I gave her $5 and she didn't say anything about it. I'm never booking her again. But no, one tough broad is one honest broad, tambien, baby. And I told him, I said, yo, I think you gave me $5 extra.
and
Oh,
now
that's
and now and now to change gears away from prime time, and I'm sure we're going to come back to it in some fashion. But I do want to talk about something that sort of is in that creepy realm a little bit, and I think you know what I'm talking about. And that it's slightly attached to it, and that's WSU. You were on their 13th anniversary show. Me and Lufisto had an entire 40-minute conversation about it. So if anybody was to beat it down, it was me and Lufisto, and that was maybe 3 weeks ago when this thing was red hot. And so we don't need to hash everything out, but I'm sure that you have an opinion on it.
That's tough. It really is because I was not there. I was not part of that crop of incredibly talented women who was exploited in that sense. I've only been, I mean, my WSU debut was about a year ago, and I fought and clawed to be on that show because the first show, I don't know if you know this, was a Golden Girls themed show, and your girl loves the Golden Girls, baby, and used to be a Golden Girl. So I had to, like, I fought tooth and nail to get on that show. And so it was something that I had to work for because I know WSU was a great place as a female wrestler to be. So to see that happen, it was very, very heartbreaking. And I mean, it still is hard because I love that locker room. I've trained at CZW a handful of times, and I know the person behind it all, you know, has his faults, but he also like has been very, very sweet to me and has given me chances and opportunities that I think I've grown from, such as working with, women such as Sue Young and Casey Dillon. So it's so conflicting and it's so hard, and I hate that I'm in this position because I really love WSU. And also, like, DJ let me wrestle Connor Claxton. Can we talk about that for a second? Like, what? Like, I was trained at a place that wouldn't let me, like, wrestle men on shows. Like, my original training, like, I never had shows for, like, my first year and a half. Not because I wasn't ready, because there's no other girl for me to wrestle, because it's not believable for the 5'8", 200-pound, legit Haas Golden Girl to wrestle some 5'6", 160-pound dude because he's a boy. But anyway, neither here nor there. I'm not bitter about it. I'm very bitter about it. To have someone like DJ let me wrestle Connor Claxton in a hardcore match, which is something I really want to do. I really want to get in that hardcore scene. I really want to get in the deathmatch scene. And it's just so it's a rock and a hard place because I really want to be that bitch who goes, Maria Manic on everybody and gets in that deathmatch scene. And CZW and WSU, in my opinion, is the best place to go for it. So once wrestling starts up again, I have a lot of thinking to do. And it pains me to say this as a feminist. Like, dude, I accidentally majored in women's studies. I'm such a diehard feminist, but it's tough. And I feel for the girls like Lufisto and, Miss Mercedes and all of that. I feel for them so much because the work that they put in, and they are much better wrestlers than I ever will be. And to have them degraded like that is absolutely heartbreaking, but it still is a third party. It's not like DJ was out there saying, "Oh
Right.
yeah, look at these, tits and ass wrestlers out here." I mean, yeah, lame ass excuse 100%. And like, do I know I'm going to be returning to WSU? I don't. Um I don't know if I am. I also, don't know, like, it's tough. It really is. Like, am I afraid that I'm going to be canceled if I do try to pursue my selfish, like, hardcore dream? I am. So it's very much a rock and a hard place. And I don't want to say, oh, because it didn't happen to me, it's not true. Like, I believe what every woman who has spoken about it has said, such as Jordan Grace and Miss Tara Calloway. Like, I believe them wholeheartedly, but like, like, that's why I think women wrestlers are always tougher than men, because we have our self-interests that in mind, but we also have, like, knowing that this is what can happen to us in wrestling. And it's something I think is very underappreciated by not you, but just the regular fan. They think,
Certain
oh, because she's
people
a girl, she gets all these opportunities. But no, like,
will
there are things that people don't think about that women have to go through in wrestling, and it's tough. It really is. I wish I could just stand there and say, hey, FCZW, FWSU, they're terrible, but I still do have, my interests in mind, and hopefully I can find a better place that'll let me prosper in that direction, that doesn't have the objectifying tendencies that WSU actually had. So, fingers crossed.
And let's talk about WSU, because while all this stuff is going down, and I believe people have faults, I believe people make mistakes, I believe there is always a path to redemption. I'm a strong believer in that. It's got into an argument on the entire Adam Clutch situation, which is a whole different story, where I was like, look, maybe he made a mistake on something he said 8 years ago, and maybe he's a different person. I believe there's always a path to redemption. I always believe that I like to give people the benefit of the doubt that they might have made a mistake before they haven't made a mistake, unlike Jay Hunt, who doubled down.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my personal belief.
Yeah.
And I'd rather be, give somebody the doubt before I destroy them or they get destroyed, because I believe people make mistakes, and we're all human, we won't make mistakes. But getting back to WSU here, you kind of had sort of a hardcore match slash death match slash issue.
I wouldn't call it a death match, but it definitely was a hardcore. They gave me two hardcore matches, actually.
But the one I want to talk about is with Eddie McQueen. Let's talk about that one.
As I said, Eddie McQueen, my best Judy. And I don't know if you know this, but when wrestlers wrestle their best friends, they fuck each other up, bro. Like, for sure. And, like, guess what? We fucked each other up. We did it. No, I think Eddie probably did my makeup that day. Eddie, like, I can do my makeup, but usually when Eddie and I are in a locker room together, Eddie, if he has time, will do my makeup because he loves doing it, and I love Eddie, so yay. So we're just two little gal pals, throwing each other through doors like every gal pal does. Um, like, Eddie wasn't originally booked for that show. I bought Eddie along with me on a whim, and I'm so glad I did, because it was at the beginning of the pandemic. So there were a couple women who chose not to show, and like, I'm not gonna fault them for that at all. I was actually supposed to work Miss Casey Catal, who I love to itty bitty pieces. I
Casey,
love
I
Casey
interviewed
Catal.
Casey. I interviewed
Yeah.
Casey. Casey's amazing.
She's lovely, but she has lupus, and so she's immunocompromised. And I didn't blame her at all for not showing up, and I still respect the ever living hell out of her. And but I think it goes without saying. Um, so I'm glad I got to work with Eddie that day because I think I've worked with Eddie 1,000,004 times. So we just know each other's bullshit to a T, and it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I love that bitch. Eddie, I love you. I'm gonna text her right now. Eddie, I love you.
So talking about Eddie, because there wasn't just the hardcore element to it. There was also storytelling. There was
What's going on?
also, yelling at each other and you saying "Get your ass out here" and things like that. And to me, that makes a match also more interesting. Where it's great to see a story being told without words, but it's always fun when we get this idea that like you're yelling at somebody and you want to kill them and you want to hurt them, and like it seemed
It's
that Eddie was running away and Eddie was
it's
trying to avoid a
always
fight.
easier to tell a story with dialogue, baby. And so when you have that type of opportunity, which I think this whole pandemic wrestling has given us the opportunity to incorporate dialogue into our matches and our stories, which is something that, wasn't really that prominent um beforehand. So that's a lot of fun, and I hope we don't rely on it too much because hopefully wrestling does get back to normal and we can wrestle in front of crowds. But it is a fun element to play around with, and Eddie is someone who fully understands the entertainment aspect of wrestling, and that is his biggest strength is just the theatrics of it all. So Eddie, I feel like has bought that out of me from the first time I wrestled him back in I don't even know. But we wrestled in Niagara Falls together. Like how random is that? Like, what? Um, so he bought that out of me and just reminds me to just like to have fun and be the most authentic version of yourself in wrestling, and it translates. Like even though this is a choreographed fake sport, people know what's bullshit and what isn't bullshit, and that's the characters that receive attention are the ones that are genuine to who they really are. And I think Eddie is the prime example of someone who is genuine to who he really is. So Eddie, I did text her. I said, I love you.
And even to go off of that, because you said something that's interesting, where you're relying on dialogue a little bit more, and so is a lot of wrestling at the moment because there's no crowd to play off of. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and game changing wrestling, I think, is having a minimum crowd coming back in their show. But I know that St. Louis Anarchy and Jeremy Wyatt and Fred Yehi are doing a 60-minute Iron Man match with nobody in attendance, and so we're about to witness a very weird experiment in wrestling where GCW is limiting to half attendance, spacing everybody apart. Everybody has a mask. You can bring your own, or they're going to give you a mask for free. Hopefully, it'll have a GCW logo on it because that'd be really cool.
Marketing.
If they're smart, they would do that. But what is that like to wrestle without a crowd? And furthermore, we can jump in further here. Where do you think wrestling is going? Because we're in a weird time where clearly, you know, we don't know much about COVID. We really don't. And there's also the possibility of a second wave. And then there's also people feeling comfortable. I mean, you mentioned Casey Cattell, and hopefully she's not going to be mad at us for saying this, but people have diseases and have autoimmune diseases.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing. And people say, hey, I'm going to just pass on this event for a while. And then you also have people, I have a weaker immune system due to a disability, and when I get sick, it's horrific, and I can't move, or it's harder to move, and I know I get sick because my legs don't work as well, and that affects my confidence in
Mm-hmm.
going to events, and it's not just wrestling. So I'm curious on how you feel about all of that and where you see it going. I know it's a long question.
Yeah, no, no, no. The first time I wrestled in front of zero crowd was hard. That was actually the match I had with Eddie because you don't know if what you're doing is getting the reaction you want and not having an instant gratification. I'm someone who I feel like I'm a performer first, wrestler second. I didn't grow up a wrestling fan. I don't give a rat's ass about wrestling moves. I give all of my attention to the crowd and their reactions. I'm a performer at heart, baby, but I can't sing and I can't dance. So I had to find a talent somewhere. So it's very, very difficult to wrestle in front of no crowd. And to see a platform such as WWE wrestle without a crowd like that, more props to them. Like they were making it work. They were getting their money, and I appreciate that wrestling wasn't completely seized away from the public during this time. Because like I've wrestled like in tapings where the boys were the crowd, and that's a lot of fun. And that's kind of what I feel like WWE is doing right now in AEW, where they have like the roster members like watching their matches, and it's a lot of fun. I feel like it's almost like no pressure in a way because like they didn't pay to see you. In fact, they're getting paid to see you. So, and when you don't feel that pressure or nervousness, some of the best things happen. Additionally, there are some gifts that occur from the crowd, like stuff you can't ignore from the
What?
crowd, such as like
What?
certain chants or
What?
just gifts.
You didn't get it. The what
What?
chant?
Like any chant, like the exactly. Sorry, I was like in my own world. The what chant, or like it's hard to know what to do and when to do it without a crowd.
John
Oh,
Cena with the Wendy's with Heath Slater was a gift.
yeah,
That's the best
exactly.
example.
Exactly. Just like every time I wrestle, I hope that like some fan just like has their chair explode in the middle of the match because that is just something I would have fun with. Just, like there are just some just like gifts that come from the crowd. Just like some stupid fan chanting the dumbest shit and just playing off of it, and that's. I mean, I don't know how many matches of mine that you've seen, but one of my pieces of offense, I will call it, is 100% reliant on the crowd because I do the cha cha slide, and guess what? Everybody's got to clap their hands, and if I have nobody to clap their hands, guess who isn't doing their offense? Me. So like, it's it's hard, but I think the takeaway point from all of this is that crisis is the cradle of creativity and great things are going to come out of this. We saw the cinematic style matches come from larger companies, and I feel like some of them have been absolute pure entertainment and great, and some of them have been kind of cringe. So we're all in this weird, awkward learning phase, and it's like cooked pasta. You got to throw it at the wall and see what sticks.
And what do you think wrestling companies are going to do in the future? Because that's kind of the second part of the question, where clearly there's a few issues in play where it's what they can do legally
Right?
with these places. It's also what do these places want? I mean, prime time's in a brewery. It's how comfortable the brewery feels. It's how comfortable the roster feels, and then just as important, it's how comfortable the fans feel.
Hmm.
Because prime time, and I don't think this is a secret. They can't run a fanless show. They don't have
Hmm.
funds. They're too in infancy. Primetime's in about its year and 2-3 months of formation. About I think 11 shows in to everything.
Hmm.
If and I think I'm being very generous. I might even be less. And so, Game Changer in wrestling can run fanless shows. Beyond can run fanless shows to some degree. But where do you think it's going, and when do you think it's going to come back? Because and
Oh,
no feet to the fire, no feet to the fire, but just you're on
yeah.
the inside more than I am.
I mean, there's a company local to me who's running a drive-in show, and it's like $60 a car to watch.
It's kind of cool.
I I mean, like, I appreciate the gumption. I just can't imagine watching wrestling from the back seat of your car. So best of luck to them. I believe it is a charity show raising money for a great cause. So all the luck in the world to them. And also like like you bring up GCW, and I've never had the opportunity to work for them. However, that type of environment where everybody is on top of each other and gives that very underground feel. Wrestle Party in Providence, Rhode Island is very much similar to that, but like way less like indie cool. It's like kind of campy and funny, and my favorite place to wrestle. Um, so like I feel like people like me are really gonna have a hard time making that adjustment because guess what? Your girl ain't gonna do no Canadian destroyer. Not today, Satan. I'm gonna do stuff that involves the crowd because that's all I can do. Like that's what I bring to the table. So there are people like me who are very nervous about what our bookings and shows are gonna look like coming up. I mean, I really I don't have an answer. I mean, my next show actually is July 11th, and it's going to be in North Carolina, and I have to film a promo for that right after this. But yeah, UPWA, North Carolina, I think Wilmington. You should go if you can. So I'm concerned. Like I don't know what it's going to look like, and also depending on where it is in the world. Like I'm from New Jersey and New York City was like the epicenter of this all. So I'm gonna have to be putting a lot more miles on my car, baby, if I'm gonna want to keep wrestling because I don't think anything in NYC, New Jersey is gonna be happening anytime soon.
I agree in which that I'm a big anime Comic Con fan, and New York Comic Con is not happening. Anime NYC just put out saying, oh, hotel stuff is open, and we got panels are open, and I'm like, you guys are blind. And they actually asked me for feedback, and I was like, you really think you're going to be open? You think New York is going to allow you to put on a show where there's 30,000 people or 180,000 people in a convention center? You gotta be shitting me a brick.
Yeah, no, it's not gonna happen. So I gotta go to the South, baby. They don't care about that. You gotta go to you have to go wrestle in a place where everybody's neighbors are at least 200 feet apart from them, and not everyone's living on top of each other. Like New Jersey is more densely populated than India. Think about that for a second. So of course the cases of COVID-19 are going to be incredibly high here, and we have to go, the extra mile for, the protection of it all. And I gotta drive the extra 8 hours for the booking of it all. So, like I said, I'll say it a million times again. I don't have an answer for you. Like nobody has an answer. There are people talking about tapings and this and that, but there's nothing set in stone. Like I wouldn't be surprised if I get a call tomorrow saying, "Hey, your UPWA show on July 11th is canceled." Like that wouldn't surprise me for a second. Everything's up in the air, baby. Up in the air.
So, on that note, I think we're going to end, but I definitely want to give you an opportunity, even though it's not positive, to promote yourself. What is your social media? Where can people find you? You have a cute cat.
This is Gordo. And Gordo was by my feet, so I had to pick him up. So like I said, CORINNE, one R and two N's, baby, _MINK on both Instagram and Twitter. The legit hoss, One Tough Bra, that's where you can find me. I've been putting out literally zero content lately because I barely put pants on during this quarantine. So to put fake eyelashes on, this is the first time I've done that since probably that Connor Claxton match I had in March. Right, Guado? Okay. Um,
Well,
so
you
yeah,
didn't have to get dressed up for this because I didn't get dressed up
I
for
had to.
this.
I had to because I know if I didn't, people would be like, why is that man so sick on that show? And like I said, I got to film a promo after this, so two birds, one stone. I haven't put my contacts on since late March, man. Like, you see these nails? These are my quarantine nails. These are long, beautiful nails that I get done underground in a secret location by my bridesmaid / nail lady, Diane. Because wrestling's not happening right now, so I can have my long ass Jersey nails and not give a damn.
Well, Well, clearly you went the extra mile, way further than me, on that matter. But I'm going to say this, definitely everybody who's listening, go support Corinne. Definitely follow her on Twitter, Instagram. Just because she's not putting out content doesn't mean you shouldn't follow people. It's very important to go follow people. It's definitely important to support people. It helps with bookings. It helps let promoters know. It helps let other people know. Also, if you have an IWTV subscription, definitely go use it. Watch a bunch of primetime stuff because, from my understanding, the more you watch whatever promotion, they get a piece of that, and it also lets that promotion know what's going on. And if a bunch of people are watching Butch vs. Gore, without a doubt, that's going to affect Billy, Lolo, and Gator's minds on who to book, when to book, why to book it, ideas for Butch vs. Gore 2. And you'd be surprised, even though something isn't happening today, a lot of stuff's going on, and the way it's looking is that it's definitely going to have an influence somewhere down the road. And engaging with people, shoot people a tweet. It makes a big difference, or like their Instagram, or follow them on Instagram. So that's all I'm going to say on that point. So I just like to say thank you for being on, because I was excited to do
Thank you
this.
for being a friend. It's my go-to answer is also thank you for being a friend. But yeah, no, I love this. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for giving me a reason to glue eyelashes to my face.
Well, that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. It's not just my dream to interview people. It's doing that as well.
What I'm here for.